Welcome to The Leaders Who Care, a podcast powered by Dynamis Group. We are here to give the stage and support to those committed to create a positive and lasting impact, way beyond the profits and margins, the leaders of the world who care for others and serve a bigger purpose. Join us on the journey of creating a better, more caring world. And now to your host, Marian Temelkov.
Hello, everyone. Today, I'm super excited to welcome a very special guest, Vicki Bradley. What an amazing leader who is an advocate and champion for many great causes. Above all, she is the CEO of Women in Leadership Empowered. And Vicki, thank you for finding the time and joining us today.
Oh, Marian, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Wow, I want to hear so much about obviously all the things that you're doing, Vicki, and I want to hear your story and really what inspired you to do all these great things. And you're an inspiration in many ways, you know, and this is what we want to talk about today. So people who are listening can actually take some great lessons and key insights from you about your success, what inspired you. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey? Who is Vicki Bradley and how did you arrive to where you are today?
Oh, wow. How far back do you want me to go? Well, thank you. Thank you for asking, actually. So Vicki Bradley is really, I'm a catalyst for change when it comes to key decision points for people and for companies. And how this all came about, I spent 25 years as an executive in the retail industry. And loved what I did, Marian. Like I had so many amazing teams, have so many great stories I can share with you. And then one day I got really sick and my body said, yeah, no, you can't do this anymore. And it was honestly the best thing that ever happened to me, because what it helped me to do was actually take a step back and say, what do I actually love about what I do? And it was always about people. How do I help others reach their potential? How to help people see what their worth is, right? And to really understand the power that they have within. And so all of that has led to Vicki today, which, you know, I've developed Women in Leadership Empowered. I don't just work with women, I work with men too, but my primary focus is inspiring women and helping them to see their worth and, stop listening to those little stories in our heads and knowing who we are and caring about our happiness and the joy that we have in life.
Oh, this is amazing. But it's very interesting to hear that you had a very critical moment that had a profound change, which is often the case in most people's lives. But and you can either resist it or you can actually take it on board and say, hey, that's a message, and maybe listen to your body, listen to you know what's happening to you, and embrace it. And what I can imagine must have been a very difficult moment, but tell us a little bit about that profound change, that kind of trigger, and what you had to go through.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, Marian, I have to be honest with you. I'm a little bit stubborn and hard-headed. So it took a couple of knocks on the head before I actually realized how my body had literally shut down. My body said, this is not working and you're meant to do something bigger. And I basically became debilitated and was in excruciating pain all the time. And you're right, I had a choice. I could have become a victim to that and decided to just, roll over and let things happen. But in my soul, deeply, I felt like I didn't have any other choice. I had to pick myself up and I had to find a way to live and to live a better life. So it really was the catalyst to help me realize that, yes, I was doing great work and I was, inspiring people and influencing teams, but I wasn't fully inspiring even myself. And so I had to take that deep look within and what's working, what's not working. And so I went on this quest and journey of self-discovery, of, really looking inside, right? And remembering things that I knew were there, but I couldn't remember them because I'd gotten so busy on that hamster wheel of life. And even decisions were, you get on autopilot because we get so busy with the demands of life. And I slowed down. I had to. My body physically made me slow down. And the second time it happened, I started listening because I said, I don't know if I can manage a third time. And I just really started doing things differently. A lot of self-care. I tried every type of alternative medicine, I would say, acupuncture, Reiki, just really getting in touch with myself, and Western medicine as well helped. But it was, I guess the best way I can describe it is you hear stories about the importance of mind, body, and spirit together, right? And how you heal yourself. And honestly, that is exactly what I've been doing for the last 15 years. And what I recognized in the people that I serve is that they haven't quite gotten to the illness part, but they were on that path. And so part of what's inspired me is to help others not have to go through the hard time to really find themselves and to find that joy and that peace within.
I love it. Vicki, this sounds so familiar. I'm sure a lot of people will identify with that because we all go through that, and it's perfectly normal process because they don't necessarily teach you that at school. So I think really these are the things. And look, of course, there's a certain moment where people are ready to hear what you say because they might listen, but they don't hear in that sense. But what are the advice and guidance, in a way, lessons you can share with the audience, how to prevent even that happening? What are the kind of steps that they could do? What is the kind of self-care perhaps that has worked for you perhaps?
Yeah, well, a big part of that, and that's a great question, thank you. And sometimes you don't even, like, as I was going through it, I didn't even realize, Marian, honestly, what I was doing at first. And I think a big part is the will that you have within, right? And exercising that will. And for me, it was stop looking externally and looking internally. And I know that sounds easy to do, but it's very hard to take a look inside and start to recognize what are those messages that are coming up for you. If you're not happy, right, then make the change. And so it's paying attention to, when you get up in the morning, and I used to say this to my team at Bombay, I would say, if you get up in the morning and you look in that mirror and you say, oh my God, I don't want to go do this again today, then I said, that's the day you need to come in my office and let's talk about what you should be doing. I will help you find that right career, that happiness that you're looking for. But you have to know that spreads, right? Like if you're not happy, it's toxic, right? Because it spreads to everybody. It's that ripple effect. When you are happy, that also spreads. And so you said this earlier, life is too short. So it's tapping into the things that make you happy, that bring you joy. And it can be those simple things. It doesn't have to be the big house, the big paycheck. It's the simple things. And honestly, that's really what I did. I started, what do you call that? I started like purging in my life and shedding. Shedding was the word I was looking for. Shedding things in my life that weren't serving me and that weren't making me happy. And just really looking at, what's important. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything, right? Our days, we don't know how long our days are going to be. And so making the most of those and spreading that to other people. You have a choice. You can spread joy as easily as you can spread anger or frustration. And, people don't realize. So I'll give you an example. There's a great women's club I belong to in Toronto. And one of the women walked out of the coat closet one day and she was like, oh my God, you're so stupid. And she's talking to herself. And I said, what are you doing? I said, would you dare talk to your best friend like that? And she looked at me and she went, of course not. And I go, then why are you talking to yourself that way? And she said to me about a year later, she said, you've been a pivotal change in my life, because you saying that to me made me realize the stories I tell myself. And I think as individuals, we get caught up in, messages from how we're raised or society or social media, instead of realizing that we have to take that self-care and be our best friend and our best cheerleader. So I don't know if that helps, but for me, it was really about looking at what messages I share with myself.
Amazing. I actually really thank you for sharing this kind of amazing story, because you are absolutely right. And I can often see it and observe, and even done it myself in the past. But in fact, when I start realizing that is not serving what you're talking to yourself, so your internal talk, if you're not going to share, why people don't share that with others? Because they will most likely not get away with it.
Yeah.
Because you can't go on the street and talk about to other people like that.
Yeah.
So you might, well, why then doing it to yourself?
Exactly.
At some point you will not be able to get away with it. So you better stop talking, and just sharing. Be grateful for what you are, and it's all right not to know things. It's all right not to have discovered. But just as you said, paying attention to those little things during the day. Make a note. Like I'm very grateful of Anya that sent me this 5-minute journal book, and it's such a great thing to write down the 5 things that made you happy in the day or not. So you start to realize what are the things, at what moment you felt joy.
Yeah.
It's just and then you will, once you know that, you consciously know what are the things. And Vicki, you've done so much, and we have a great question here from actually Stoyan, and I wanted to show it to you. And just quickly, you've done a lot of work coaching and empowering female leaders. From your experience, what are the biggest obstacles, limiting stories, as you just mentioned, the modern woman struggles with on her way to achieve whatever she wants and deserves?
Great question. The most common, honestly, is those messages of not enough, right? Even though you can be super successful, it's that belief somewhere within you that you're not enough. And so your comment just then, Marian, about the journal, right? Taking that time to recognize and celebrate, because we don't celebrate those things that you do amazingly well. So I'll give you an example. I was on a call the other day with a client, and she sees herself as, not smart enough, not pretty enough. She's gained too much weight. And so, and excuse my language, but I said to her, I go, well, how I see you is this, badass female that is rocking the world. Like your team loves you. They're fully engaged in everything they're doing. And she was like, really? That's how you see me? And I'm like, yeah, that is how I see you. And so it's you recognizing within you the power that you have and changing that narrative from, not seeing how awesome you are, but it is making your list, right? And society, we always, it's natural. Everybody looks for the negative first. And you'll hear people when they talk, they go, yes, but, and it's like, no, get rid of the but. Focus on what is so powerful there. So I'll give you another example. Yesterday, I was on with 2 clients at one time, that same company, and they were having struggles with some of their team. And they said the team always comes in and they, it's always something negative. Well, why aren't we doing this or why aren't we doing that? And I said, well, maybe you change that narrative by asking, what are we doing well? Start with the positives, right? Like you have a choice. You can be negative or you can be positive. So when you have that, then people, they go, whoa, wait a minute. What does she mean, right? So you're shifting the narrative of how we approach situations. And it's a choice. Honestly, it's a choice. I had a friend who called the other day who's struggling a little bit with everything happening with COVID. And she was complaining about the weather and the snow and how cold it is here in Toronto. And I said, I know, isn't it great? I said, it's like this beautiful, crisp blanket that has just wrapped itself around us. And she goes, okay, Vicki, you kill me. You're so positive. And I go, I know, right? It's a choice. I can choose to see it as a negative, or I can see it as a positive. And so part of it is being aware of our habits of judgment of others, judgments of ourselves, judgment of circumstances, and consciously choosing to see the good. Everything has a good. Even when I talk about my illness that I had, Marian, I see that as such a gift, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today had that not happened to me. I would have still been, running ragged, being a road warrior, traveling all the time and not being fulfilled. So it is a choice that we have.
I love it. When listening to you, I there was this podcast or actually a movie I've listened to, and you may have heard of this famous kind of, I think his name came from the Navy, and whenever there's something bad happened, he said, good. Missile got canceled, good. You've got more time to prepare. You got all these things that are happening, to you, and you're absolutely right. It's 90% is not what happens to us, but how we respond to it.
100%.
And I'm really so glad that you shared this, because we can go about and complain, about things, or as we say, I don't know what is appropriate, but they say man up. I don't know why they shouldn't have women up.
Women up.
They should have women up or man up, whatever your circumstances are. But take responsibility and say, you know what, this is, in fact, why am I resisting that? Maybe that's one of the best things that's happening to me. And I'm just struggling to see what are the things. Maybe I want to see what are the good sides of this. I want to follow through. And you're right. It's the choices we make. And cold weather, wow, great. You could crisp. You can take more. In fact, not many people know, but the cold is so good for your body. I mean. And funny, not for long though. If you spend for 2-3 hours in the cold water, you might die, really. But in fact, if it's for cold showers or being in the cold for short periods, it gives you that regeneration. That kind of when you're in the cold, you cannot think of many other things, because you want to survive and you want to get. So you can see different things, and you're blessed and privileged to be in Toronto and have that opportunity. So it's all about choice. But recognize, sorry, you wanted to.
Well, I was just going to say something. It sometimes it's hard for people to recognize it, and I don't take that lightly, because we have created these brain. We hold it right in our memory. We hold those negative thoughts. We hold those thoughts in our neural pathways. And so sometimes you have to become very conscious of it, Marian. And it's a choice, but it's becoming very conscious that there are other ways that you can express something. And sometimes you need to get help, right? You need to have somebody else point it out to you to say, hey, there's other ways to look at that. And when you're able to do that, that's what opens up different pathways in our brain. And we start to spend more time up here in that prefrontal cortex and think that that's where that innovation comes from. And that's where more of the joy and the expansiveness comes from. When we get stuck back here, it's like you can't even see anything differently.
No.
And, I spend a lot of time with my clients on consciousness, and from a leadership perspective, and helping them to see that there's really, I use a method called energy leadership, and it's 7 different ways that you can approach any given situation. And then
Wow.
you consciously decide what would serve best in that situation. Doesn't mean one's better than the other, but what it does is it awakens inside of you this opportunity to see, hey, I can pick and choose different things.
Can you share a little bit about that? That's very interesting, the energy and the 7 different ways, if you can summarize. That sounds very interesting and could help, of course, a lot of the listeners, how they could see a difficult situation.
Yeah, so what it does is we put you through an assessment, and the assessment is not personality. So this assessment is very subjective, and it looks at, what your belief systems are, what your perceptions are. So as an example, if you tend to see things from a negative lens, you might show up as a victim, or you might show up as a fighter. And those are the level 1 and level 2 types of energy. And those are called catabolic, right? And catabolic is what drains us. That's where we get lethargic, we're not happy. And the purpose of this is to help you move into more anabolic. And anabolic is really focused on expansion. It's focused on creativity, innovation. And I use this a lot with leaders, and leaders being any individual who wants to lead their life, right? And so it's how to help you shift from being in a catabolic state, which makes you, eventually, if you stay too long, it can make you sick, but moving into anabolic where you have choices, right? Level 3 is about being responsible and rationalizing. And 4 would be being a caregiver or somebody who's highly supportive. And so you're coming from a heart space. Level 5 is all about being an opportunist. And anyway, it takes you through these 7 different levels, and each time gives you a different lens of how you could potentially look at it. So if I'm looking at things through a level 5 lens, that's an opportunist. So I'm looking for win-win. How do I win? How do you win in this situation? And so it shifts that narrative that we have in our brains so that we become very conscious of how we respond versus how we react. So that example I gave you earlier with the woman who came out of the coat closet and said, "Oh my God, I'm so stupid." It helps her then to say, wow, I can look at that completely different. Hey, I have an opportunity to learn from this, or, you know what, that's okay. I did that. That was silly, but now I know I could, hurt myself doing that, or whatever the situation is, right? It helps you to become very conscious of how you respond. It's great for leaders who run big companies because it shifts them out of that autopilot and being on the hamster wheel of go, go, go to slowing down enough so that they can actually look at situations and respond in a way that keeps people engaged, keeps things flowing versus stifling and getting people to recoil. So hopefully that gives you a little bit.
Amazing. Definitely. I think you're absolutely right. And I love that different levels of response, and you can really consciously assess where you are and from what level I want to respond to that. You could kind of see that, and that's an amazing tool, and it is great to have. Vicki, we talk about obviously a lot of the struggles, and especially with leaders today. We have a great question from Anya, which I wanted to share with you. What are the struggles that the leaders face today, and what kind of support for the leaders is needed most based on your experience?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think what really happens with leaders today is we get so caught up in, making the numbers, and it becomes very focused on tangibles and, controlling expenses and making profit and making sure our stocks are at the right price on the stock market. And so what happens, and all of that happens, I would say more on autopilot. So I talked about that a minute ago, right? We just get in that motion of just reacting versus taking, slowing it down and responding in a way, because when we react, things are said that get taken out of context, right? And people walk away with their own meaning based on their lens of what was said. And then people walk away not happy. They feel sometimes, that person doesn't think I'm worthy, or I didn't do a good job. And that may not be the meaning of what was even said. So it's slowing things down in a way so that leaders can actually respond to keep people engaged, keep them excited about the work that they're doing. And I think what happens is leaders get in these roles and they only know what they know, right? And so they also need support. They need somebody that they can talk to, or somebody that points out and shows them that they have the courage to say to them, hey, this is how you're coming across. Let me, share with you what I'm witnessing. But people are afraid to do that because they're fearful of repercussions, right? And usually when that boss hears that, if they're a semi-confident person, they're going to thank that person and say, wow, I really appreciate you letting me know that. And so leaders who care, I'll go with our title here, leaders who care, they need that support so that they can continue to inspire and to influence and, have that resource or someone who will be brave enough to share with them what they're experiencing on the opposite end. And I'm going to say this because I am a coach, but Marian, I think all leaders do need a coach, because until you have that mirror test and you have somebody put in front of you what you're doing, you don't always realize it, right? And so the best way for you to make the necessary changes and to be that influence and that inspiration, somebody's got to give you the mirror test.
I love it, Vicki. They say that you need several people in your life in order to really have that true leadership, and for yourself, but also for the people you serve, for the company you serve, for whatever impact you're causing or creating. And one of the those kind of key people is have someone who is honest and candid with you.
Yeah.
Someone who will tell you the truth, no matter what. Could be in a caring way. I mean, there could be people that will tell you the truth in the opposite way. But it really, and what's interesting, I've read somewhere research that in US, majority or more than 50% of people don't necessarily have someone that have their back.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of really have people that have your back, and having your back could be multiple ways. People that will follow you no matter what. Yeah. People will tell you the truth when you're not right, and when something goes wrong. Your intimate relationship, people that actually will your family will take care of that part. People that inspire you, that will elevate you. I mean, you being one of them, Vicki, and of course spreading that. So we all need certain people in our lives to have our back, and I'm so happy that you share that. But one of them is actually have someone that will have that mirror, and that really, like they say, the honest, candid feedback is as good as gold.
Oh, no question. Because how do you continue to improve, right? And how do you know if somebody's not telling you, right? Because we all extract meaning from different words that are said. And so you do need somebody to help you to know that, what you're intending is impacting others the way you intend it to impact. And I think part of that too, Marian, what you just shared there, it's the connection, right? When you're connecting at a deeper level, then people are more open to sharing with you. Hey, Marian, you said this to me. Is this what you intended? This is how I took that, right? And then you have an opportunity to clear it up before it becomes a bigger issue. But you're right. People, when they feel connected, when they feel cared about and valued, they follow that person. And, why can't we do more of that? Like the old traditional way of intimidate to motivate, that doesn't inspire anybody. You're ruling by fear, right? And fear is not, that's
destructive.
old.
It's destructive. I know. And sometimes it's just, I think just on one point, because I've faced some of these situations, I can tell you how to fix that. It's a very interesting, had a great leader I've spoken about, and he told me about a story, and he said, what creates that kind of fear and how to get away and clear it and heal it is your first reaction. Remember, whenever there is a problem, how you first react will create either how people will respond or see you. And if your first reaction is very dramatic and shouting and fearful, and people feel highly afraid of that, they will be afraid. But if you respond in a calm way, yeah, that's a problem, let's figure it out, let's see what we can do, that can go a long way to build that trust, and people can heal. So you can heal it if there's such a situation, but it takes a lot of conscious efforts to do that. We have another great question with a really great leader who cares. Angela, thank you. Angela Podolsky, thank you for this great question. How businesses and corporates can encourage growth mindset and grow their people?
That's a great question, Angela. Yeah, I think part of it goes back to really listening to our people, and not making it about what they're not good at, but making it about what they are great at. Right. And really focusing on, even if I use that example I shared earlier about, you can start it out with what are the positive things, or what are the good things that have happened in the company with that person, because it's a shift in how we communicate, right? When you're asking people what are the good things, that naturally moves into a growth mindset, because that's what you focus on. You focus on possibility, you focus on expansion, you focus on, this person cares about me. When we're always focused on the opposite narrative, that's when people, they just follow, right? They're not, the innovation isn't there, or the will sometimes gets removed because they don't see that anybody's listening to them. So when we listen and we promote that growth mindset, you help people really flourish, and they then believe, they're worth it, and that as an individual, they're contributing to that organization. There's not, sorry, Marian, there's not enough of that. Like, just the companies who are doing it really well, awesome. I applaud them. And we just need more people showing how much they care about the individuals that work with them. They're not just numbers, right? They are human beings.
Amazing. And I also, from my perspective, one of the things that I always choose to do is, in most cases rather, is like, when I see someone, I don't just see them as what they are today, but what they could be as well. And I have this kind of just it comes naturally to me. I start to kind of imagine of all what they could become, and all the, if they take this step, what this could be. But that's from my perspective, and I can kind of see that, and often of course that can be great, very encouraging. Depending on the situation, but of course, it could be, you have to make sure that you deliver it in the right way, and they're ready to hear it. But there's so much that you can encourage in that, and just even if you see that and say, really, that's what you see for me, they start to kind of be encouraged by it and believe it, because imagination is more powerful than knowledge. In fact, if you had to choose between the two, I think imaginations have a great prevalence. Vicki, I have another a great question here, and this is from Stern again, and he's want to ask you, what about people who are not in leadership positions? What could they do to show up as leaders? And recently listened to a great podcast talking about how to manage up effectively and take ownership, no matter what your title is. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I love that, Stoyan. Thank you. So my take on it is that we're all leaders, to be honest with you. Every single one of us, in how we show up in the world, is owning that leadership, right? So when you're inspiring others, you're a leader. And so it doesn't matter what title you have. It's very much about who you are, how you show up in the world. And, like you can look at young people today who say things or do things. Like I watch my daughter, she'll say things to her friends, and I'm like, wow, right? And she's taking that leadership role because she's helping her friends see their value, their worth. And so as individuals, it's every time we can see the potentiality of someone, we're actually leading, because you're influencing their life. You're helping them see that they are worthy of whatever it is they're looking to do. And to me, that is being a leader and knowing why you're doing this, right? Like really helping someone. Like I love what you said just a moment ago about seeing someone's potential. You don't always see your own potential, right? And so when someone else can say something like that to you, then you start to believe in yourself. And that self-doubt, that voice gets smaller and smaller. And that's ultimately what we want to do, right? Because that's what brings more joy to the world, and all of us appreciating each other for the beings that we are, and not getting focused on, oh, they're this or they're that or a title, but it's respecting and encouraging those individuals to continue to manage up. And managing up, Stoyan, I'm going to talk about this for just a second, but it's about getting curious and asking questions, right? It doesn't matter what role you're in an organization, but being curious about whoever it is that you're speaking with. And Marian, you're doing a great job at that. Even the podcast that you're doing here is being curious about people and what are they offering to the world, and finding those things out, and you're sharing it. And so whenever we can come from a lens of curiosity, we learn, we grow, not just as the person that's being asked, but also as the person asking.
I love it. And you mentioned something about our doubt and when there's an issue in our mind, and everybody, by the way, I just want to speak even from a naturally very positive person, and you are as well, but we also have doubts. We also, we also have hard moments. Maybe the difference is that we don't stay for too long in those, and we probably have found a way to deal with that much quicker, much more effective. What has worked in my experience, whenever I have a doubt, I have a very strong manifestation, and when I imagine something, it materializes very quickly. Mm-hmm. So what I've been because it can be very powerful, but it can be also the opposite. It can be destructive. So you need to know how to manage. Whenever there is a doubt or something that doesn't serve me, this is how I deal with it, and that has helped me a lot. I take an action, immediate action. Okay. And how you silence your doubts or negative talk is by taking an immediate action on something that you want to happen and having success. Yeah. So action and success silence your doubt, because next time you have a doubt, but you follow that process, but as long as you take that immediate action, if something didn't work out, you were hoping for something, but it didn't work out, take an action that may lead you to something better. And when that happens, it's success. And that kind of leads. And I'm really so glad that you're talking about exactly our internal talks, because this is not often talked about, but in fact is really critical to our well-being.
100%. And what I would love to add to what you just shared there, because I am completely with you, is make sure you're celebrating that success. Whatever that success is, make sure you celebrate it, because sometimes we hit it and then we go, okay, I did it, instead of saying, yeah, look what happened there. That was fabulous. And share that with somebody. I'm celebrating because, or even if it's just your inside, right? But it's so important that we're celebrating those wins, because that's how you quieten the doubt, right? You keep building on that. When I took over Bombay as the president, one of the things I did is I made these little picture frames that said, if you believe, you will achieve. Right. And I put it on everybody's desk, in our stores, in our office, and I still have it on my desk today, because I believe that wholeheartedly, that if you believe it, you will achieve it. So it's like your manifestation, right? You're manifesting what you want to happen. And you can easily do it the other way, but you don't want to do it the other way. Why not bring joy and happiness?
Oh, this is amazing, Vicki. Thank you so much for adding this, because celebration is critical, because if you don't celebrate what you have achieved, you just you've done so much hard work and all this pain has gone through, and not to celebrate it, But celebrate, which means sharing with someone, which is multiplied. I would like to encourage and even ask the audience, have you got a celebration jar at home where you can put all the champagne, really, when you open a bottle of champagne, where do you put the kind of the cork? And right on the cork, what were you celebrating for? And just let that jar fill up. Fill it up. Fill your cup, fill your jar with celebration corks. Of that. Or if you don't like champagne, wine. If you may find, if you don't drink alcohol, do something that you fill it up. But mark and share, and that's kind of what's going to spread, because you share that, and then you're going to share that moment with someone, and just explain it. That multiplies, that compound celebration. And thank you for reminding us of how important is celebration. And when you're busy, because you've done a lot, and I know it's contagious, you want to do an extra thing, just take a pause. It's not going to take too long. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
You've got that. Vicki, really, this is amazing. There's so many other questions. I can't even put them up but tell us, how do you take care of yourself? Tell us about what are the tools you use to maintain, to keep that positivity, to have that energy, so that others can perhaps, learn and deploy in their lives.
Well, that's a great question. And definitely one is the support group I have around me. So I have, different individuals that I surround myself with that stretch me and help me refuel and rethink different things. So we all need those other individuals. I spend time in nature. I love being outside. Like yesterday morning, it was -14 here, and I was like, nope, I'm going for a walk. Because I just needed to have that sunshine on my face and just be out in nature. I read a lot, Marian, and I meditate every morning. I have meditation time. I have different apps that I listen to. But those are all refueling for me. And writing and connecting. Connecting is a big fill my cup, because it's how, even if it's just a little thing of connecting with someone and checking in. And I think that goes back to the message of care, because you don't know what somebody else is going through. And just to send them a quick little note to say, hey, thinking about you, how are you? That means a lot to me, because they know that they're on my mind, and I know how I feel when I get those texts. It's like, wow, yeah, somebody's thinking of me, right? So those are some of the ways that I fill my cup. Reading is a big part. Like I love reading different types of inspirational books, different leaders that, I think have made significant changes in our world and continue to lead by example. So those are some of my ways. And golfing and paddleboarding, being on the water, those are all my ways to re-energize.
Amazing. Oh, thank you. And we're seeing some also consistency with some of the other great leaders that are sharing. You're absolutely right. Walking in the nature is such a great way to detox. You don't realize how much pressure you have with the surroundings until you are fully relaxed somewhere on the beach and enjoying it, and can hear the noise of the waves, or when you're in nature walking, can hear the noise of the birds and thoroughly enjoy that. So thank you for sharing all this great way. What about, we have another great question here from Stefan. When people hit a rock bottom, and here's what would you recommend when people feel like they hit a rock bottom? Have you ever been there yourself, and can you share a story that, and what helped you lift yourself and get back on track?
Yeah. Well, so when I got sick, I had 3 major stressors all at once in my life, ones that we all pray that we never hit. So I lost my health. My husband walked out, and I had 2 kids under the age of 5, and my company got sold. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a lot, and I was pretty rock bottom. And, it's not an easy thing to lift yourself up, right? And again, I'm going to go back to, that's where you need a great support system. You need people around you that aren't just going to, pat you on the back and say, oh, poor Vicki. That's not what I mean. You need a support system who's going to be there to listen, but also to help you see a different perspective. And in my case, I had the will inside me, and I was living in Canada, which I am now, but I had no family here. And so it was that support network around me was absolutely critical, because I needed help with my kids because I was sick, but also just the emotional turmoil that you go through. Right. And for a long time, I blamed, everybody else. Well, my ex, I blamed. And at some point,
you're allowed to blame it on the ex.
I did. I blamed him. But then someday I honestly, I woke up and I went, no, because you have to look inside again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to harp on that, because had I not taken this journey of this internal, discovery, right? And really looking at what I was doing, what my role in it was, right? And how these things had happened. And I'm talking all aspects of it, the illness, my husband, and looking at what did I want to do different, right? And I didn't look at it. At first I did. I said, oh my God, I've been rejected. I'm not lovable. Like all of those messages come into your psyche. They do. And that's normal. And what I spent a lot of time doing was positive affirmations and really reminding myself that I am lovable. I am loving. And that just because that didn't work out, I got 2 great kids from that. I got 2 amazing kids from this relationship. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned patience. I learned how to care for these 2 little people that are now grown up being, beautiful human beings. And so I think part of it is, again, it's the mindset shift that happens, because you can become a victim of it, or you can see how this can propel you and potentially turn into something much bigger and grander for what you were meant to do. And through all of this, I have truly learned what my purpose in life is, and my purpose to serve others. So I don't regret any of it. It was hard. It was really hard. But what I would encourage people to do is take some time and really reflect and take ownership, because there's messages there that help you become who you're supposed to become if you just listen and really pay attention to it. So I'm grateful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This means a lot, and you're absolutely right. It is not easy at all. And if you have that support network, or even if you don't have it, maybe that's a great message to you to build it.
Yes.
What would it take to build that support network? People that profoundly can take care of you and have your back no matter what. But the most important is to take responsibility and ownership of what's happening to you. If typically these kind of things don't happen overnight.
No.
They are something that build over time, that you've done consistently. That's, you may call it whatever, failure, may call it success. And it works both ways. But when you arrive there, that's the message. You might find signs on the way before you get to that situation, if you can. And that's why when people are candid and honest, it may help you to prevent some of these situations. But even if you are, there's hope. Just push past the pain. That is the thing. And do things differently. Do not do the same things, because they will get you probably where you are already. They won't help you get out. And I think what you shared is just so helpful for people to reflect, take that pause, and starting to build up. If something is kind of destroyed, guess what? You can rebuild something much more beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Day one or one day. It's your choice, right?
Absolutely. And we have so much more to talk, but there's one question I want to also ask, and this is, thank you, Anna, for reminding me, because that was one of the questions that I really was very interested to hear you, and I'll read it for you here. How do you view the care culture? You've led many teams, now consulting executives. Where does the culture of care come into play, and what role does it play?
Really great question. Well, for me, I think it's that care culture is all about inclusiveness, right? And trust. And so it's creating environments where people know genuinely that you're listening and you care about what's happening to them as a person. Not just about the numbers in an organization or even in a family. It's really hearing what's being said and what's not being said. And it's the connecting at a deeper level. And you can do this in many different ways, right? And even when I shared a minute ago about reaching out and texting someone. So when the pandemic happened last March, I kept hearing from clients and friends, I'm struggling because I'm at home. I'm trying to learn how to homeschool my kids, or my kids are babies, and I'm trying to work a full-time job, all of these challenges. And so one of the things that we did at WIL Empowered was we created these virtual socials. And once every 2 weeks, we would have an hour where people could come and we would talk about what's happening. How are you coping with the pandemic? Sharing best practices that people were doing. And then we would break out into smaller groups so people could actually connect. And I share that because we get so caught up in our work that our work becomes all of us. We become so consumed in it that we forget about the person as a being. And so that gave us an opportunity to pull people out of the work environment and start to share and learn that they are cared about. And some great connections have happened through that. Like one person said to me, she goes, wow, I found my wealth management person. I found my real estate agent. I found my lawyer, because you have such a variety of people coming together. But for me, it's always been about how do you build trust? And how do you have that inclusivity within an organization where people share what they're best at, right? Because when you do that and you let them be the expert in that, you're showing their superpower. You're showing that you care about that person and bringing them in as much as possible. Even when I was at Bombay, we won this award multiple times, like I think 6 times, as country of the year. And normally the president would go up, or the person leading the area would go up, but I would take my whole team up, right? And I remember one time the CEO said to me, he goes, why do you bring your whole team up? And I go, well, because I didn't do this. This was all of us, right? Like it was the entire team. If I could have brought every store person in, I would have brought them in, because you're showing them that you care about what they have contributed, because it takes everyone. It's not one person who does it. So hopefully that answers that question, but it's recognizing people as people and helping bring out the best of them in every opportunity that you have.
I love what you just did, and creating this really social kind of hangouts and people sharing, bringing multiple disciplines, into what this is also called Renaissance. The Renaissance happened when a lot of great multidisciplinary knowledge people came together, and they were not under pressure to work or create something, but they were thinking and masterminding of what they could do, which is what you in essence you're doing. Keep doing more of that. So here we got something great thing that happens, out of the COVID. Maybe the start of many great initiatives that can lead to a renaissance for the humanity. I'm sure a lot of goodness is coming our way. It is already showing. So that is, and finally, because I'm just so passionate about this and this topic, and this is about women in leadership. really recognizing women in leadership. Why does it matter? How did that kind of resonated for you? And
well, yeah. Well, why it resonated, I'll start with that. Because I was typically the only female for years and years, right? And I would put on this armor, I would call it, to go in and deal with my male counterparts all the time. And what I was seeing, even with my own teams, right? Because I had a lot of women on my teams. And what I would see is that when they would be in interaction with men, they would get quiet. They would have this it was like, oh, people are listening to him, but they don't really listen to me. And so that inspired a lot of the work that I'm doing, because it was like, how do I help you see that your voice matters? That what you're sharing, and how to take that back in a way that is not argumentative, right? Is not hurting the other person, but how to take your power back when that happens. And so that was a lot of the inspiration of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I keep evolving that, Marian, because what I've realized in the past year even is all of us have two parts, right? We have part feminine energy and part masculine energy. And where we get into trouble is residing heavier in one part versus the other. And so I'll give you an example. Even for myself, when I was in these corporate executive roles, I resided in my masculine energy all the time. And I felt like I had to, because of the dynamics of what I was doing. What I have learned through all this, studying and research that I've been doing, where we're the most powerful as a society and as a being is when we can balance the feminine and the masculine energy. We all have it, so we just need to harmonize that. And when we do that, you have a much more empathetic, much more caring culture. So that's a big part of bringing women up.
I love it.
To level that feminine energy more. And it's not at any time is it ever about putting men down. That is not it at all. But it's helping both sexes learn how to harmonize. And that's so that we make a better world.
I love what you just did. And Vicki, this is such a great initiative. And I want to sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, to thank you for what you're doing, because that is up, it's not about one being over the other, but actually being able to harmonize and use the best of both. And remember, women, we as men need you.
Yes.
And vice versa. And it's really, how do we kind of find that way to best communicate with each other, be more confident, show up, and take on more. Use your superpowers. That is it. You said it. Just find out what your superpowers are, and stick to them. Develop them. Become one of the best you can be in that field, and that will give you that confidence, and you will not get lost in that. And remember, we need you, and just have that deep down in that confidence. So. Vicki, well, what can I say? Thank you so much for making the time today. You've been inspirational to share all this, giving us and sharing these personal stories, and being even vulnerable in this, but giving so much value. I really want to thank you for being a giver. And any final words for our audience?
Well, thank you, Marian. Thank you for having me. I love the work that you and your team are doing, and we need more of this. Absolutely. I think, the one thing I would leave our audience with is to think about, it's a quote that I share sometimes, and it's, if the pain of staying the same more painful than the change. And so when you think about it that way, that helps you to realize the change is not that scary. Right? And, it's just, we all have our own gifts that we've come into this world with. And it's remembering what those gifts are and sharing those proudly and generously with the rest of the world.
Encourage more. And I really love that. So this is not that scary. Take the change that will serve you. And I wish everyone to find that abundance and in every area that they want to be abundant, and create that wealth.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me today.
Great.